This is a slight divergence from my usual content, but I hope you guys enjoyed anyway. I've mentioned before on this channel that I don't support either side in House of the Dragon. There is no clear good or bad side for me. Though a lot of us seem to think differently, and that's fine because everyone has their own opinions. Still though, it surprises me the lengths some people will go to defend their side, how eager they are to paint people as clear villains and others as saints. People will swear Aemond is a demon, but then excuse Daemon when he does exactly the same thing. But that's not the topic of today's video. Today's video is about why I don't agree with Team Green versus Team Black. As always, spoilers beware, and let's get into it. I understand how easy it is for people to pick a side. When you make characters, you give them personalities, you give them traits, mannerisms, motivations that people can understand within the context of the world. Things that people can get behind and support. And it's no surprise the majority of these things will come from your story's main cast. I mean, they kind of have to if you're going to keep people engaged. You can't give every warm body a story, even though every warm body does have their own unique story. But you can't tell them all without arguably taking away from the main focus of your story. But this isn't a video lesson on writing a book, something I'm actually working on as I tackle this YouTube thing. My point is, we often act as if our main characters are the center of the universe. Out of everyone, their actions hold true weight, true consequence that could change the world around them. And this is especially true in House of the Dragon. You have this noble family who reigned for hundreds of years, the descendants of an old and glorious empire with magic in their blood that allows them to command the most dangerous power and weapon in the world: dragons. With one word, they can burn down kingdoms at a whim, wipe out bloodlines, stop wars, or start them. I feel like so many people are caught up in who they think is right or wrong, they forget the real tragedy of the war that's going to take place. And no, I'm not going to spoil anything from the books in case you're wondering, but just go off of what we've seen in the show. This family is going to tear themselves apart so they can sit on a bladed chair that none of them have earned. A thing that could potentially kill them and make them rot from the inside out. And for what? You have people like Otto, who believe Aegon should be king because of tradition, and that breaking tradition could potentially destabilize the realm. You have Alicent, who didn't want Aegon to be king simply because he was a boy. At first, she wants him to be king to be safe for Rhaenyra. Then she wants him to be king because she believes that's what Viserys wanted. Then you have Rhaenyra, a woman who was promised the throne and didn't take people seriously in her youth, but then contemplates giving it up for the sake of peace until her husband says otherwise and her son dies. And you have Daemon, whose default is just violence. He idolizes his heritage, yet picks and chooses what he wants to embody from it. This whole conflict is of personal interest, not some great political reckoning like some people would have you believe. This is going to be the greatest familial fallout in the history of Westeros. And the whole of Westeros is going to suffer because of these people and their ambitions for a chair. No one is born with the inherent right to rule the world. The Targaryens are often placed on a pedestal because of Aegon the Conqueror. But before the Targaryens even came to Westeros, they weren't even a high-ranking family in Old Valyria. Power was never just given to them. They had to earn it, take it. Even with the dragons, they aren't so different from everyone else.
Everyone says Targaryens are closer to gods than to men. But they say that because of our dragons. Without them, we're just like everyone else.
They have to fight for what they want, fight so they can keep it. But when it comes to Targaryens fighting each other, everyone loses something.
Viserys spoke often of the Valyrian histories. I know them well. When dragons flew to war, everything burned.
And it's this reason as to why I don't take sides. Aside from just liking to watch people implode and seeing everyone as great as they were intended, it's because of the foundation of this conflict. This isn't about saving the world, changing the system, or some other grand reason like the kingdom being under threat, though people try to spin it like that. It's about people who wrong each other because they were wronged in some way. Their children dying, their inheritances taken, discontent, and the lack of familial bonds. It's sad how one family can be filled with so much hate for one another. And the only answer for them is to fight fire with fire. And everyone is going to suffer, not just the royals. People are going to die. People have already died, and I don't just mean in the main cast. Commoners died. These people who just want to live their lives in peace.
And praying for his return.
The common people pray for rain, health, and a summer that never ends.
They don't care what games the High Lords play.
Sure, they may prefer Aegon being king, but does that preference really justify them being crushed by Rhaenys in the Dragon Pit? She makes this big spectacle and people applaud, but people just died. Hundreds, if not thousands of them. Mothers, fathers, children, dead in an instant just for Rhaenys to look smug for a moment before leaving. And no one cares, not even the viewers. They're too busy shouting Dracarys at their TVs because they hate the Green so much. Time and time again, we see that Targaryens have no regard for the people beneath them, unless we're counting the Greens who actually go at length to protect their image. The common folk are just collateral, and because we don't see them up close and personal, because we don't know their names or lives or bother to get invested, we begin to think of them that way as well, as NPCs in this fiery Game of Thrones. And that's only a taste of what's to come from this family splitting themselves apart. This conflict is a tragedy, especially when you consider it doesn't even matter who sits the throne in the grand scheme. Years later in the main story of Game of Thrones, the dragons are extinct. House Targaryen is overthrown and the family tree has been severely pruned. The Mad King Aerys Targaryen was killed by his own Kingsguard. Rhaegar Targaryen was killed by Robert Baratheon at the Trident for taking Lyanna. Rhaegar's wife and children were brutally murdered afterward as a result. After that, you could count the amount of Targaryens left in the world on one hand. There was Maester Aemon, who was old and blind, Viserys and Daenerys, who lived in exile, Jon Snow, or Aegon Targaryen, who everyone believed was a bastard, and then, a not-so-obvious Targ, is the Three-Eyed Raven who trained Bran. I don't think they mentioned it in the show, but the Three-Eyed Raven is actually called Blood Raven, whose real name is Brynden Rivers. Brynden was the son of Aegon the Unworthy, a Targaryen king infamous for sleeping with a lot of women and siring numerous bastards. On his deathbed, because he didn't like his wife or trueborn son Daeron, he legitimized all his bastard children, giving them all the claim to the Iron Throne. That started a myriad of rebellions and conflicts that left a lot of people dead and caused some houses to go extinct. But I digress. As the show goes on, the Targaryens are taken out one by one. Aemon dies from natural causes. Viserys can't handle the drip, so he dies. Brynden gets killed by the Night King. Jon Snow gets betrayed and killed but comes back to life. And then he kills Daenerys later on. Even the dragons she hatched are pretty much gone as well. One was killed by the Night King, the other got killed by Euron, and Drogon has gone who knows where after Season 8. Poor writing or not, this is what becomes of the Targaryen line, in the show at least. It's funny how Viserys speaks of prophecy, how the realm needs a Targaryen, but on multiple instances it seems like the people possibly could have been better off without them. So many people died, deserving or otherwise, because Aegon had a dream, and the people were deluded by it. Sure, a Targaryen united the people, at least in the north, but it doesn't seem like being a Targaryen was a requirement like Viserys believes. Jon was only seen as a bastard, and as said by Davos,
all those hard sons of bitches chose him as their leader because they believe in him.
And when it comes to Daenerys, her hatching of the dragons was said by the author himself to have been a freak accident, and when she rallied the Dothraki and the Unsullied, they didn't follow her because of what her name was, they followed her because that's what they wanted to do. Plenty of people resisted Daenerys even though she was arguably the rightful heir to the Seven Kingdoms. Some even refused to kneel to her in the face of her dragons as well, the proof of her lineage. This whole idea that only a Targ can do it is just wishful thinking, which kind of plays into the theme of House Targaryen. The Targaryens often misinterpret their dreams, only hearing what they want to hear and seeing what they want to see. Their visions come true, but not in the way they expect. There's always this talk of Targaryen might, the prince who was promised, of Azor Ahai. Yet when the long night comes, the Targaryens aren't even that useful. Dany's dragons are overwhelmed, Jon can't touch the Night King, and in their darkest hour, it's Arya who finishes the fight. A wolf, not a dragon. So it's funny how these people are seen as the center of the world, but they can't even save it. The Targs aren't gods among men. They're just like everyone else, with fire-breathing lizards. People who are not solely good or solely evil. People who make decisions that have consequences. Dire ones. It doesn't matter if Aegon beats Rhaenyra or Rhaenyra beats Aegon, or if Daemon adopts Aemond as the son he never had and they take over the world together. People are going to burn as a result of this family feud, and no matter who wins, everyone is going to be far from safe. But those are my 2 cents on this flawed group of people. There is no winner in this war, at least from the way I see it. This family tearing themselves apart to sit on this metal chair. But you guys let me know who you support or why you don't support them, and try not to kill each other in the comments. Empyrean out.